Gorgeous faces. It's so nice to see you guys here. I'm waiting for Madeline Rozak. I know her so well. I've never had to say her surname. She is the one that introduced me to you.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I was trying to remember.
She said you were better than sliced bread, and she was right. She was right. Okay. Hello, you guys. I have got a treat for you tonight. They all know that I'm a tiny bit starstruck because I've been like going on the group going, oh my God. So I've warned Michael that we're not your ordinary talk show. And guys, remember the rules. If you have a question, and feel free to ask questions. I want you to walk away from this call feeling empowered. I've seen Michael's stuff. I've listened to some of his podcasts, and I walked away feeling much more in control and happier in my journey. And if you get even a small part of that from this call, my job is done. So yes, you can ask questions that are out of the ordinary. You don't have to stick to quirky ones, but you remember my rule, don't make them boring, please. And type question in caps before your question. And Michael, 10-year-old Michael, what did 10-year-old Michael dream of being and doing?
Now I'm nervous about saying anything boring. I wanted to be an actor. I mean, you know.
Really? Even that young?
10. Well, I want to think, honestly. Yeah, I think I wanted to be an actor as soon as I knew there was such a thing.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New York City for the most part. We bounced around a little bit. My parents were in the film business, so we lived in Selma, Alabama for 2 months doing a film. That was cool. And Florida for a while. We moved around a little bit.
So you grew up around actors and in the business then?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I grew up around the film business, and I wanted to be in musical theater. That was my thing. I never, the way my career has worked out has been nothing like the way I envisioned it, because I'm primarily known for TV drama, and I thought I'd be doing stage comedy. So, right. You know, it's all good, but yeah, I really can't remember wanting to be anything else.
Were you in school, acting in school? Were you putting on plays for the neighbors? I mean, was this like you were
I was that boy? I was that boy. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So that's wonderful. So it was like a lifelong love.
Like a present that I longed for and finally got was a disguise kit. I wanted to be a man of 1,000 faces, like on the old Wild Wild West show. I wanted to be Artemis Gordon, who kept showing up in disguises as different people.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Okay. So 10 years old. So smooth path, rocky path. When did you meet your first, oh, this isn't exactly the way I envisioned it going?
Pretty young. I had demons. I was really, you know, I can't pinpoint when this all started. I don't know what happened exactly, but I became very shy and had difficulty presenting myself in public. It was traumatic to me. They tell me that I wrote notes saying I hate myself, I'm going to kill myself, when I was like a kid.
Was it like, do you think bullying or just?
You want real talk?
Yeah, but only if you're comfortable. I don't want you to feel it.
I'm an open book.
Okay, then yeah, real as we can get.
The behavior is looks like someone who's molested.
Okay.
Feelings of being disgusted with yourself. I mean, like, you know, it's not normal to feel that way as a kid. you
Yeah.
know.
So shame.
I think there was some kind of real trauma there,
Okay.
that's like, you know, blocked out, but because it's not normal, you know.
Right.
So listen, you asked, I told you, I talk about
No,
anything.
I thought the thing is, this is the thing, and you guys weren't there. I really do try not to get the good stuff before the actual call,
Yeah, right.
but
It's awful.
but we were saying that I like these calls to feel like we've all just had a good dinner, and this is the bit where we're having the
Yeah.
bourbon or the amaretto and having a good talk. And I and you said this, and I agree with this, or maybe you didn't say it, and I just
Let's
thought you
say
did. It's we all have it. And I had Candy Kisses on. She's a burlesque star over here. And the whole theme of that call was the things that we're ashamed of are the things that if we let them see the light of day and we witness that everyone else has the same thing,
it's
it
empowering.
becomes less heavy.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a big part of my work with actors, as I said to you before, is like sort of reducing the idea that there's this big chasm between people who are on TV and people who are not yet on TV. Like it just sort of normalizing this. So I was socially really shy and not a particularly happy kid, and so that was that. You know, it was a for someone like that, being an actor is not easy because you're presenting yourself all the time, and you know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was mostly rocky. I was a late bloomer in my career and in everything, you know, because of figuring stuff like that out.
I'm wondering though if, because a lot of the famous actors, and I mean it's well known that a lot of actors and they're just troubled, or they're on the edge, and I wonder if that's part of what attracts people. I have a feeling that some people have more transparent barriers between their soul and the world, and that when they do, they're attracted to acting because, and I know people say that people act to like inhabit another world to get away from who they are, but I feel like it's like a very brave quest to find who you are.
It turns out you find out a lot about who you are. I'm in the camp of callings. Like I think acting is like as soon as I knew it was there, it was like this beacon that in spite of my shyness, my weirdness, my darkness, I was like, but I'm going to keep following that light, you know. And I feel like finding what you love, finding a job that you love is gold.
Yeah.
I had this conversation, I never have forgotten this, with a woman who's a Walmart greeter. And she said, I found the job I love. She said, I wake up every day excited to go to work. I'm like, that's the goal to me.
Wait, a
That's
what?
gold.
A what?
A Walmart greeter.
What's
She's a
that?
greeter. Walmart is a store and they have
Oh,
greeters.
no. I know Walmart, but I don't remember the greeter thing. I've been gone too long.
Oh, they have people who work as greeters to say, welcome to Walmart. How can I help you at the door? And she loved that job. I mean, the point is like the teachers who love teaching. I know
Yeah.
actors who don't love acting. I'm glad I found the thing that I love, you
Yeah.
know. So I believe that I went into it because it was my calling. But on the other hand, there's a case to be made for the argument that we wanted to escape our lives and get to be other people. I mean, certainly I get to play people who are much more badass than I'll ever be and much more confident than I'll ever be and much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is
I
kind of
love
cool.
thrillers. So most of the women I want to be are like killing someone.
Yeah.
Oh, go
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah.
But
It's funny.
so, okay, so you've gone through all this, you've got all these feelings. New York is cutthroat, isn't it? Like auditioning, acting in New York. I've never been there. But I get an impression it's very hard to break into in New York.
I think acting is hard to break into anywhere
Yeah.
on a professional level. I don't really resonate with the word cutthroat because I found this to be a pretty supportive tribe overall.
Mm.
There are a lot of us, and it's a catch-22 kind of business where like you can't get a real audition unless you have an agent, you can't get an agent unless you have jobs, and you can't get jobs unless you have auditions. So it's challenging, certainly, but also uh, it's funny. I don't know if I've really realized this until this conversation, but I think I was always in the I want to be an actor, I want to be an actor. I didn't really pursue it till I was in my 20s. I didn't really start going to any auditions because I really didn't. I had very low expectations. I didn't think I would be able to have a life in it. I just wanted to, so I did school plays and everything, but the success that's come to me has been a shock.
Did you do something else in the meantime?
I waited tables. I did temp jobs. I, did whatever little gigs I could do. I got it. Murder mystery weekends and, things like that.
I love those. Those count as acting.
They were fun.
Yeah.
I worked as a bank teller and a customer service rep and a couple of different jobs like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you're auditioning and everything. And I love this story. This is the place that I wanted to get to because you mentioned in your podcasts and the start of Audition Psych. Am I right that your friend said you always give this great advice, talking me down about bad auditions?
Yeah.
And because to preface, I had not the long story version, but just short. I always say the actors. I'm part of the London Actor Network, and there's like thousands and thousands of actors on it. And I had a bad time at a horrible corporate job. I hated, and I went and I was part-time acting, and I posted it like one of the worst days, and like thousands of, and partly because thousands of them weren't working and happened to see it on social media, but thousands came out in support, like, direct messaging me. And I think it's because there's no one like a fellow actor to know what it's like to be between jobs. And I only ever once, I did have a woman in a room auditioning for something, try to make me feel insecure and put me off when I was new, right before the audition.
There are those people, but it's, I have to say overall, I mean, this group of people saved me. I mean, I'm estranged from my biological family because they were villainous.
Okay.
And this is, I mean,
family.
I mean, it's family. We're nuts and quirky and weird, and also overall really warm and supportive. And I don't think actors are most actors are cutthroat. Some are, but not most.
I only experienced it once.
Yeah.
Only one, and one out of like millions. Not bad odds. And the narrators, and I have to shout out to the narrator community. The amount of times I've seen them, and a lot of narrators are actors or they're radio hosts, or they all have these weird eclectic backgrounds, but they're actors. We're acting. You don't stand in a booth and talk to yourself for 8 hours if you don't have an actor's soul.
It's absolutely acting. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me. So the friend, the talking her down. I want to hear what your experience with auditions before you figured it out was like.
It was very, very hard. I would first of all, getting myself to go at all was just almost impossible. And more often than not, I wouldn't go. I'd read about them in the paper and circle them and then not go because I had a tremendous fear. And the sense that like I didn't belong there, that those were the real actors, and I would be called out and sent home, and and then when I would go, my time in the room was a blackout because I was so fearful that I don't remember those conversations or anything, and not surprisingly, I did not ever get hired. I didn't get any callbacks. I never got good responses because you
look like a deer caught in the headlights. When you did show up.
And yes, and my feeling like I don't belong here was all over me. I think my medicine in life has been sort of taking a step and sort of picking apart the various pieces of a belief that I have, you know, like saying, oh, you know, if I'm running late, I get like this. And I have to say to myself, what happens if you run late? Let's see what happens. What are the results? And then I go, okay, no one's going to die. No one's going to yell at me. It's actually not that big a deal. And so I've had to do that throughout my life in terms of, you know, working on my demons, my fears, my stuff, and kind of like going, and without realizing it, I over the years, gradually, I did that with auditioning, like asking myself, well, what are you afraid they'll do? You know, and I'm not a pep talker. I'm not like, y'all do great, you'll be great. I'm like, let's look at reality. Let's look at the reality. Let's pick it apart. And I sort of didn't realize that I had started to have a much better time, started to get hired a little bit here and there. And a friend of mine who's a teacher, this is many, many years later. Now I'm a working actor, I'm doing theater, and I met her doing a show. And when I wrote my first book, which was not about auditioning, she said, first she's like, you should come up and do an event here, and you know, people will come and you'll sign the books. She's in the Bay Area. I said, okay. And she called me back shortly thereafter. She said, you know what? Nobody wants to go to a fucking book signing. I said, oh, okay. She said, come teach a class. And I said, what would I teach? I don't know anything. And she said, you're an idiot. She's like, every time you're the person I call when I have an audition and I'm anxious, and you always tell me something that makes me go, oh, and I was like, this was news to me. I had no idea. And I had never taught before, and I was terrified. And with shaking index cards, I just wrote down whatever I could think of, you know, anything I could think of. And at the end of that 3-hour session, people came up and said, you just changed my whole life. I was like,
right. I listened to one podcast. I was like, oh my God. I think I posted on the group that night. This guy.
I mean, and it's so weird given my background and how small I feel inside to be this guru, you know, but part of it is that I am not peddling magical thinking or 6 steps that will to success or any miracle cures. I'm peddling, let's be honest, let's look at it truthfully and realize that that is not so bad. What's really
that's
true
when you know it's true. When you listen to someone talk and you think, I knew that.
Yes.
But you never looked at it that way before. And that was everything you said. That was like, oh my God, I knew that, because that's a truth. When it's
I love when people say that. They say, I knew everything you said, but you put it in a way that made it really go, for me. And that's amazing. I'm telling you, this was not my life's goal, but it's become an important part of my life's work, because something that you said before we started recording, if you can alleviate some of the negative experiences for other people, some of the anxiety, some of the beating yourself up kind of stuff, then that's what a blessing, what a privilege.
And it also improves. The synapses are flying too fast for me to catch up with my own thoughts. Jonathan had a good point. He said, Michael's challenging his beliefs, which is just like CBT. And it reminds me of what I've been trying to do, is you're retelling the narrative of your stories.
Right.
You're challenging your stories. It's that Brene Brown, I think it's her, or the other one. And she always says, you know, there's a woman sitting in her living room and her like drug addict daughter hasn't come home, and it's past 11, and her mind's spiraling, and I'm probably completely misquoting, and I might even have the wrong person, but she's spiraling, and you ask yourself, you know, what's wrong? Well, my daughter's gone and she's a drug addict. She's probably back on drugs. Well, you know, is that true?
Right.
And if you go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, no, it's not true. You don't know that. All you know is you're a woman sitting on the couch and it's 11 o'clock and your daughter's not there. You don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
We fill in all the other stuff.
100%. You know, I remember talking to a therapist and saying, I was very, very nervous because I was really poor. And I was like, I'm going to starve. I'm going to get kicked out of my head. She said, what's the current reality? I said, well, yeah, today it's okay, but I'm going to starve and get kicked out of my apartment. She goes, do you have enough for this month's rent? I'm like, yes, but you're not understanding. She goes, no, your current reality. She's like, did you eat today? I'm like, yeah. Current reality is everything's fine, right?
Yeah.
We're not saying it couldn't be unfine, but what I learned is panicking preemptively, it doesn't do anything to solve the potential problem. All it does is you're panicking preemptively.
And you
You know?
wait and you take so much space and so much focus, and all we have is our energy and focus. And the big lesson I learned in this job is all that takes time. It takes your focus and it takes your time away from doing the things you want to do, because you can spend and becoming a freelancer. I always tell these guys this, coming from always having had a well-paying corporate job to trying to go back to the way I was in LA, the Kraft macaroni and cheese diet, because I found a pack of 10 for like $2 and I'd have that in Diet Coke every day. That's it. You know, I was afraid of going back there. And I was sitting on a couch saying to my friend, but okay, I don't understand. How am I going to pay my mortgage? Right? You're like, where is the money coming from? Well, I'm okay right this minute. And the truth is, after 6 years, sometimes my brain still wants to go, you know, what's going to happen? I'm going to be under a bridge and eaten alive by, like, I don't even have a cat. Nobody will, you know, but it's been okay. I don't know how, but somehow I'm always working. It always works out. You have to, like, maybe you get braver, don't you?
The way I like to put it, when I bought a house, I once owned a house and I had a full meltdown because I was like, I've ruined my life. I was looking for a job driving a bus, anything. I was like, and similar experience because it's mortgage magic. I don't know how I paid that mortgage, but I did. And after 2 months, I said, okay, Michael, here's the arrangement. Here's the agreement I made with myself. You are allowed to panic the minute there's a crisis. Until then, enjoy your fucking house and shut up. And that was the deal I made with myself.
I love that. Right?
Because I'm like, why am I panicking preemptively? It's not going to help me pay the mortgage if I'm not able to pay the mortgage, you know? But again, it's that self-talk that I've had to do because I tend to be a worrier and dark and panicky and all this, you know, I'm a little broken soul. So I'm able to help people because of the fact that I have to do it. I have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I always laugh when actors are like, oh, I had this audition, and I'm like, they're worried. I'm like, what's the problem? Like, well, if I book it, it conflicts with this other thing. I'm like, nobody's offered you shit. Relax. You know, as soon as there's a conflict, you can deal with it. You don't have to deal with it in advance.
I know some narrators, and I mean, this is wise advice in some instances, but I do know relatively new narrators, because you have to have a little bit of the steps are, you go on the public platform and do the pay as you get the jobs, and you apply for ACX, they call it. And then you go to smaller production companies once you've had a few more books under your belt, and you say, look, I've got these books, will you hire me? And then you start to step up and go to the big publishers. And then you really start to go to the big five and everything. But I've heard so many narrators that aren't making the move to go to the production companies. And then especially I see it again when it's time to make the move to apply to the publishers. And what I always hear is, I don't have enough books, or if I got it, I wouldn't have enough time to do it. Or you're not going to get 20 jobs the first time you start sending letters. Believe me, it's going to take a while. But if you're not putting it out there.
Also, I don't know how it is in your world, but if I say, oh my God, I'd love to do this film, but I'm already booked on another film, that's sexy as hell. It's nothing, no tragedies happen if you're not available. It means you're in demand, you know? But again,
you can be like me and just say yes to everything out of scarcity, and then like end up making yourself sick with overwork because you didn't say no. Because the low-hanging fruit comes first. So you get yourself busy with the jobs that like keep you busy, because the mortgage, and then the really great never fails. You never get the really great, amazing, you'd kill the job first. You get that one after you've taken all the.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Well, so, okay. So tell me, I want to hear more about the sit with the book and enjoy, sit with the, sorry, I translated into narrator speak. Sit with the job that you booked and revel in it and enjoy it. How do you approach auditions now as opposed to how you used to? You guys, full disclosure, Michael has a course called Audition Psych 101. And how is it formatted? I heard about it on the podcast. How does it work?
We now only recently have an online course. And what it is we filmed a live class back before the pandemic, thank God. And because what happens with the interactions is important to see. So it's broken up into 22 chapters, 22 lessons, like mini lessons. And it's accompanied by like worksheets and other little references to other materials, but you're basically watching the class for the most part. Which is, I love doing it live, but between the pandemic and also my, knock wood, increasing work schedule as an actor, I'm less able to do it. But people are, I don't want to be a salesman. That's never my thing, but people are finding that the online format of take it at your own pace and also you own it for life so you can keep going back to it is really working.
Yeah.
They like being able to say, wait, what did Michael say about this? And they can go back.
I think we're a lot more used to that now after the last few years.
Also, I talk a lot. So there are people who come back to the live class again and again. I'm like, why do you do that? They're like, well, you talk for about 4 hours and I always miss something. And then I come back and I get something else. So it's a good way. It turns out to be a very effective way of doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's on your website. Now, so courage in auditions. What difference between Michael auditioning before and Michael auditioning now?
So I'm a big, I talked about what's been medicinal for me has been sort of analyzing things. And I'm a big fan of logic and blunt truth and not positive thinking and not manifesting, none of that. I'm like, what's really true? And when I realized that mathematically, most auditions do not result in jobs, I thought, wow, if I'm only satisfied when I get the job, I'm going to be dissatisfied most of the time. So what I've trained myself to do is relish what I do have, which is a few minutes to play a part, which, oh, I forgot. I like doing that. When I've completely given up my investment in the result because I don't really steer that. Somebody else does. And so trying to steer something I can't steer is crazy making.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, last week I got to read the part of a disgruntled desk clerk at a seedy motel. I'm like, that's a good day. I'm done. That's a good day. And so many actors and also people in other forms of the arts, it's that cliche about enjoying the journey, but man, that's really important because it's so easy to negate what is because it's not something else. It's carrots, the carrot at the end of the stick. Someone said to me a little while ago, I'd mentor a lot, and I said, boy, if I had your career, I'd be content. I'm like, no, you wouldn't. You'd get there and go, okay, what else can I do? So it doesn't just apply to the moment of auditioning, but also the moment you're at in your career. Like if you're not with the big publishers yet, don't miss having fun with the low-hanging fruit and going, well, this is fun. I'm talking into a microphone and somebody's paying me. That's crazy.
And our low-hanging fruit changes as, and I remember the day I heard your podcast about enjoy the job you get, relish it, and sit in the moment. I was like, really, because I had done 5 auditions. People had reached out. I've never ever had that many like all at once. And I booked like 3, which was again, like, and one of them I didn't know about as I was listening to your podcast. And then one of them had just gotten back to me and they'd been sending me emails and they were like, we love you. We love you. And I was saying on the last call, I was the guy. I mean, I had it, right? But the minute they said, oh, it's between you and another person, and I'm not like, if it's between me and another person, I'm not a person you go away and consider and then think, oh, I like that girl. Like, you either love me or hate me, and that's it. I just know that about myself.
Okay.
But so that I didn't get it. And I was listening to your podcast, and my first reaction before I heard you talk was, I was the guy. So I don't understand, something went horribly wrong here. And ironically, I hadn't cared at all about that book.
Yeah.
It was the other books I wanted the most. But when I didn't get that book, it was all I thought about for like 24 hours. I was like, why didn't I get it? What did I do wrong? Oh my God, do you think I sound old? Maybe I'm sounding too old for all the jobs. I listened to yours and you were like, I can't remember what you said, but you said, be in the moment of that job.
And also, you were talking about the woman on the couch and her drug addicted daughter is out. It's the same with, what does it mean to not get picked? It just means you didn't get picked. We're the ones who spin off into, I must have done something wrong or bad, or there must have been something I could have done differently that would have made me that is all mythology. It's not a failure, especially, again, in the on-camera acting business. If most auditions don't result in jobs, then it can't be called a failure to not get a job. That's the norm. That's just the norm. So we make these stories up about, oh my God, they must have hated me. No, they didn't hate you. They just didn't pick you. And that's the reality, which is why it doesn't feel like rejection to me. They talk about, oh, there's all this rejection. No, rejection is like, this is bad. We reject this.
Yeah. And we don't ever get that. Our rejection comes because my story in LA was I was fat. It didn't matter how thin I was always too fat. That's why I wasn't getting this job or that job. But now I don't kind of have that excuse because they can't see me. So what is it? Oh my God, maybe I sound old.
There's no there. They just didn't pick you. I have been on the director side and been in, picked my cast. I just picked the one I liked best. I don't know why exactly. I just responded to them. Were the other people great? They were really great. In each category, I had 6-8 people who could have played the part. And the ones who I didn't pick weren't bad. They just weren't right for me.
Yeah. And we were saying before the call that that's the nature of our industry. We're so lucky, you guys, because we get more opportunities than a working actor. We have control. We can get our own jobs. If worse comes to worse, we can go on Amazon and start writing writers personally. I did that in the beginning. And you know what I mean? We're in control of that, but we have a lot more. The more auditions you do, the more no's you get.
Yeah, the more no's,
And you tell a different story. So I've got a question. This is a good one. Okay. Kim wants to know, what or who was your favorite character that you loved being?
There are many. I'll tell you, what comes to mind is the TV role that I got that was the most mysterious and mind-boggling, because I played I played an ex-con with long hair, tattoos, scars all over my face. I got to, and
I want to see this. What was
the show is called Banshee, and the episode is called Wicks. I was smoking, drinking, snorting coke. I did a stunt fight. So I mean, it's hard to answer which are my favorites, but this one of the things I loved about this was, first of all, completely mysterious. It was a straight offer. They called my agent and offered it to me, and it is not what I do at all. And that was the fun of it. I was stepping completely into this different person, and it was just not. It makes no sense for me to play that part. I had a blast. I think that's just. I mean, I could name the more prestigious things, but experientially, it was really cool to be this, gravel voice, Southern, like disgusting guy.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Prestige is just, okay, so what role did you get when it first occurred to you? oh my God. Like when new Michael had to look at, when old Michael had to think, I might be being new Michael because this doesn't feel like, what role was that when it first started to like kind of feel like it was switching?
I don't know, because it's fuzzy. There isn't like a threshold. Also, I'm a slow learner, so it probably happened before I realized it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I think
You're like me. Oh my God, you're like me, but just not female. Because
yeah,
I kept saying that with publishers. I was like, I wanted to be a publisher girl. And then somebody's like, well, you've worked for 3 publishers. No, those jobs didn't count. I thought they were going to call me into HR and give me my publisher badge.
yeah.
I thought it was good. There was going to be that moment
I'm
that
still
I
looking
made
for
it.
I'm still looking for my adult card. I'm like looking around going, who's making the decisions? I'm like, oh, you're 60. It's you, dumbass. Guess what? You're the adult. I'm still looking for the adult. Yeah. I'm glad you relate. It's fuzzy. But I do think the moment that like an acting job ended and I went, wait a minute, I don't have to get a day job. That was amazing, to not have to go look for a job at a
Wow.
restaurant. I think that
Yeah.
was whenever that was, and I can't remember when I was paying my bills by acting, that was like, wow.
Wow. And did you
Yeah,
not think to yourself, oh God, what if something happens and this ends?
of course. Yes, I go through life thinking, you know, don't get too big for your britches. You're going to get punished. Something bad is going to happen to you. This can't last. Or, if anything good happens, it's like, it's always like I operate under the assumption I'm doing something terribly wrong, or I've inadvertently offended someone. So I got to work, I work on all that stuff.
Madeline, the one that discovered you, brought you to us, says Kostroff nugget of wisdom, number 7,624. When you didn't get the part, you were just the shirt that didn't match their pants. That's all.
Right.
I love that. I love that.
Right.
So
wait, I want to tell you one other lovely analogy, way of looking at this that came from my wife. She said, if you go to Las Vegas and you're only going to be happy if you go home with money, you're probably disappointed. She said, but if you go to Las Vegas and you can just enjoy the way they've themed the places and enjoy putting the thing in the slot and all the colors, you win every time. And I'm like, that's it. Be in the experience of it, of what you actually do have, instead of betting on this unlikely outcome for your happiness.
Yeah, because if you're never satisfied with where you are, what's the point, really?
Listen, I speak to people, actors, they're like, oh, I booked a film. I'm like, oh, that's great. They're like, well, yeah, but it's not like a big film. And I don't have that many lines. I'm like, shut up. How many people wanted that job? Hundreds of people wanted it. They picked you. Take a minute and fucking celebrate, for God's sake. Come on.
Right. And I've always been bad at that. I ask myself sometimes, do you ever stop and think, if 15-year-old didn't, because I read a book about this girl that had some weird rare amnesia where she woke up one day, she's like, got a kid, and she's like a woman, with a smoking habit, like a 60-year-old woman. She woke up and she lost all her memory from when she was 16. It's like a rare thing that's happened to people, or evidently. And yeah, it was nonfiction. And I always think, what would 16-year-old, and she wasn't a smoker because she hadn't been smoking when she was 16. So like all of a sudden she quit smoking. So all the stories we tell ourselves about how we're addicted, nope, she wasn't a smoker. And I wonder what 16-year-old Daniela would think, or 15-year-old Daniela, if she woke up living in the UK, narrating audiobooks for a living from her cool studio, having done burlesque in London. I mean, if you tell yourself the story, like, what would 15-year-old you think of your life now?
Look, right now I'm doing a play.
Yeah.
It's not on Broadway. But I'm doing a play. And I went to the theater early the other day and I walked around the stage and I was like, you are doing the thing you wanted to do when you were a little boy. Like, you got picked to be in the theater. And I'm like on this great set and people are going to come and we're going to make them happy. And I'm like, I do think it's a discipline and a practice to keep going. Hey,
Look,
love
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Look what you're doing. Look what you're doing, you know?
The theater never gets, and the theater, I don't care what the play is, the theater is magic. It is. That moment before you go on, the theater is magic.
But when you're a practitioner of theater, you have to sometimes remind yourself of that. I've done tours, you know, of the producers and Les Mis where we hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of performances. And a big shock to me was the day I was like, I don't want to go to work. I was like, oh my God, I had to pull myself aside for a chat on that one. Come on.
Right.
That's messed up, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try to remind myself of the horrible job I had before, because that quickly reminds me, you know, because you want to complain. I mean, there are things in every job that you kind of want to complain about, but we're so lucky. We're so lucky. Even between gigs.
I had a horrible job for a while working, getting audiences for test market screenings of new films. And we had to stand outside movie theaters.
Oh, wait, was that
try to get an audience to go to
something?
these test market screenings. With that, we weren't allowed to tell them.
Was that
NRG,
National
NRG.
Research? NRG, my sister worked for NRG for like ages.
Oh my God.
That was a hard job. I couldn't do it.
And it was a hard job and very weirdly competitive. And one night I was standing outside a movie theater with about 6 or 8 of these people waiting for the movie to let out. And I had this great kind of a cloudburst of reality. And I started laughing so hard, I collapsed into the gutter. And they're like, what's wrong with you? I said, when I imagined what my life would be, this wasn't it. I said, good night, everybody. And I quit. I was like, this wasn't it. This is not it. You know, I was like, goodbye, everybody. This is just,
where was that? Was that LA?
Yeah, LA.
Because there's a special, do you not find there's a special connection you have in LA? Because when you're out of money in LA, you're really out of money and you are living amongst people with Rolls Royces. You've got the Rolls Royces driving by you every 2 minutes and Jimmy the crack addict on the corner, and you see both choices and you're sitting there going, how am I going to pay my rent?
Yeah.
You know, or
although
like
coming from New York, where it's more expensive and more difficult, you know, LA's a walk in the park by comparison.
Is it really? See, that's what I meant by cutthroat in New York. That's how I imagine New York. Everyone really, really fast and knocking you over on the sidewalk if you're not fast enough. And
I will tell
love
you,
that image. I secretly wished I lived there.
New Yorkers are much friendlier than our reputation.
Okay.
What we are is efficiency freaks. So by the time you get to the counter, you need to know what you want to order or get the hell out of the way. We're like, let's get it done. Let's make things happen. So that's, you know, but so we're a little intolerant of that, but we're, you know, we're much nicer people than you may have been told. We don't knock people down.
I quite like the image of, and I always think when I'm really old, I'm going to go move there and be like the new Iris Apfel.
What a good
That's like my goal. So, okay. So for narrators, it's a numbers game, isn't it? If we've got access to all these auditions, if you're not in the game, you won't win the game, right? I find them when I book the most jobs is when I care the least. When I get nervous, I don't know, you can't hear it in my voice. I'm a professional. I don't know what it is, but when I care the least, I book the job.
I want to talk about that because that's actors talk about the same thing. I look at it this way. I have a thing I'm good at, which is acting. Whenever I pile on other things like trying to get a job, I get distracted from the thing I'm good at. So when I want it and I'm trying to manipulate the outcome, it brings in nerves. It does all this. So this is why enjoying the moment when you get to read that little audition piece is everything. The reason we are more likely to book when we don't want it or we don't care is because we get everything else out of the way, and now we're just, well, I'm just going to do this once, I'm going to enjoy it. So it isn't that you have to not want the job, it's that you have to practice enjoying just what is. What is this moment that is an audition. And I know people who don't call them auditions, they're like, it's an opportunity. Today I am actually narrating this little piece of whatever the audition.
Why do people not call them auditions?
Because they think of an audition as a test, and it's actually a chance to act. In my class, I talk about a chance to act on a Tuesday, a chance to act on a Thursday. Every time I have an audition, I'm doing the thing that I love already. I don't have to wait for permission. If you love narrating, then you're doing it at the time. And rather than trying to, how do you make a voice that makes them pick you? You can't. You can't go, oh, I'm going to do my voice in a certain way so they'll pick me. There's no magic trick. They're just going to pick you or not. So the more we strip away like trying to get a job is not conducive to getting a job, I always say. But what is if and again, I'm not a narrator, but I imagine if it's like, I want to make sure they understand this story.
I've done both, and it's exactly the same thing because you are acting in the booth. And I think the problem, the thing I see narrators do, and I think is a big mistake, but that's because I come from an acting background, is that they get caught up in the technicalities. And the very, very good ones will teach you the technicalities of sometimes we'll have to do 10 accents in a book. And they'll study the technical aspects of the accent or the technical aspects of approaching the character. And then they'll go to a good coach, a Paul Rubin, a Johnny Heller, and they'll tell them, bring it down. Where are you right now? What are you seeing right now? Be in the moment. But that, when you're in your head going, how do I do this? How do I do that? I've marked it up. Some of them will mark up their manuscript in 800 different colors, and they're like reading their notes while they're narrating. And I could do more of that. I won't lie. I'm the opposite end. I go in and forget and like to think that like I'm acting when I'm enjoying myself. But I think that's our biggest struggle because we're right in their ear. When we're auditioning, we're acting right in their ear. They can hear everything with this like massive microphone. So you suddenly become very aware. Every new narrator learns, oh my God, I can't talk. Like 4 sentences, and you hear this and you hear that, you get over it, and you go on. But I think I completely forgot where I started this conversation.
I'm following all of it. I love all of it. I mean, we're just talking about the things that get in the way of enjoying the audition, and how I'm saying that enjoying the audition is more conducive to booking work than trying to book work is.
Yeah.
That's the conundrum. That's the paradox. But I think that I can't make myself the choice. That's somebody else's department. I have fired myself from casting. So when actors say, well, I was going to do this, but I don't know if it's right. I say, right for whom? Right for whom? Because
you always hear you could sound like their mother-in-law. You could be perfect for the part, but sound like someone they hate.
Listen, to my mind, voice casting is really mysterious. I don't know how people do choose among voices. That's very mysterious to me because, again, the look doesn't matter. It's a quality. It's what you happen to respond to. It's so subjective, right?
And well, sometimes you have the writers that want you to sound like the characters did in their head. And
you can't,
it's impossible. And that's a very careful conversation. Once they've said they want to hire you, you do a 15-minute sample for them. And I am like, actually, I'm a little bit too much. I'm going to try to kind of be calmer. But I'm like, you have to be 100% happy with the way I sound, because unfortunately, you can't take any direction. It takes like a week to do your normal book. But you are right about like, you can't make your voice. I was in LA. I used to take a bus home from Culver City from one of my like menial jobs. I think I was a receptionist. And I used to talk to my friend on the back of the bus. I wasn't talking any louder than I'm talking now. And I loved that. We had so much fun. And one guy kind of maybe a little bit off center one day, walked up to the back of the bus and stood there in front of everyone and screamed at the top of his lungs like he was literally having a breakdown. Would you just shut up? I can't stand your voice. I can't hear you for one more minute. I'm gonna kill myself if I have to hear you talk. So of course that moment I thought, well, maybe I'll become an audiobook narrator for a living.
Yeah,
But
perfect.
I mean, we can't help it. Some guy's not gonna like us.
There's a particular reporter I can't listen to. He's got a weird fry in his voice. It just bothers me. But somebody hired him to speak for a living. So it's subjective. I mean, I'm sure there are people who think I'm an asshole. I'm sure there are people who think I have no talent. That's inevitable.
There's always someone with no taste.
Yeah.
There is no accounting for taste. And like, really, nobody gets everyone to like them all the time. That's like do you want to spend your whole life trying to get everyone to like you? But it's like, but it's what you make that mean about you, though. When you don't get the job and they don't like you, then what you do telling the stories. How much of your life, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Say what you were saying.
It's what you said. How much of your life are you going to waste telling yourself the story about why you didn't get hired?
Right.
When you could be doing something else, enjoying the book you do have or the job you do have.
And also, I don't even want to say they didn't like you, because they might have thought you were great.
Yeah.
And they picked somebody else. I have been the first choice for something and not gotten the job. They're like, he was the first choice, but we felt that we needed a person of color, which is great, or he was the first choice, but the producers wanted a different look. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't like me. I had a director, this was so nice, in New York City. I had a director stop me on the street and say, "You don't know how close you came to getting that job."
Wow.
But I want to tell you, you were really terrific. And I was like, I had no idea. I just know I didn't get picked.
I'm, talking to you though, I'm remembering why I moved out of LA, because I had a receptionist come up to me for a corporate job I tried to go to, telling me, "I'm so sorry, we all loved you so much, but in the end, he chose the pretty one." So now I'm remembering in our conversations why I think I left LA.
Yeah.
I've forgotten all this.
That's a
somebody's commented, "Everyone adores Michael." So
I'd like to think that's true, because I do get very anxious about the idea of anybody not liking me, but at a certain point, somebody said I go with the 50-50 theory. I was like, "What's that?" He's like, "I just figure 50% of the people can't stand me, 50% of the people adore me, and then I just don't worry about that anymore." But I think.
And then who has time for the people that don't like you? I'm busy with all the ones that adore me. They're more fun anyway.
I think your outlook is healthier than mine. I would like to say that I don't worry about those people, but I go, what did I do? How could I fix it?
I did that most of my life, Michael, but then what I was getting was I would win them over. I did that because I did corporate jobs for my sins. I would do these corporate jobs and I would try really hard to fit in, and I would convince them and I would be interested in them. I would spend literally 150% of my time trying to make these people like me. And then they would like me and I'd have to keep doing it. And I finally realized I don't like them
it's a lot
at
of effort.
all.
Yeah.
Right. So now for all this effort, I got to spend more time with people I don't like. It's,
I love that that's the kind of analysis that I love, analyzing the situation, going, hang on, what are we doing? Yeah.
What are you getting from them liking you? You're getting to spend more time with them. And it's weird how we never ask ourselves, what do I think about them? Mm-hmm. What did the audition, what does the casting director think about me? What does this job that I've just interviewed think about me? Well, what do I think about them? Do I want them? I went in, they look stiff. They look pretty much like they were zombies. I put on a dazzling show. and I know in my gut I don't want this job. You know, we always
Yeah.
feel like the needy ones, palm in hand, begging.
That's another adjustment that I'm really encouraging people to do is to, you know, own the dignity of whatever our art form is, to own the dignity. Not everybody can do what you do, even though there may be lots of people who do it. Not everybody can do it. It's pretty special. I have never narrated a book, so I'm impressed by that. To me, that's wondrous. That's like,
You should narrate your book. I'll help
oh,
you.
I am going to at one
Yeah,
point.
you should do it.
When I have time, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I will do that as an
But
ebook.
you should make time. I'm serious. It's a separate marketing avenue. It's a great book. It needs to be out there.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have got me started because it
Well,
needs to be done.
actually, I would narrate my first book first because it's a chronicle of my time on the road with the producers and Les Mis, and
Cool.
I love that book. It's a behind the scenes kind of adventure of being on the road in a show.
Narrate it seriously.
I should.
Seriously.
Yeah.
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 And those are the kind of books that you have to do yourself. We always say hire a professional narrator, but some books they need to be done by the writer.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually,
and somebody just said your voice is great. You would be Kim just said your voice is great. You would be marvelous.
Thank you.
And
I love it.
I don't think he has a podcast. Somebody said that he doesn't have a podcast. He has a course that you can get online. I'm going to link it in the video, and I'm going to link it on the page as well. And he's got a book. He's got 2 books.
I've got 4 books.
You got 4 books. Oh, see, I knew about the audition stuff, but I haven't.
It's I know that's another thing I never planned on being as an author.
And also subscribe to Michael's YouTube channel, and you can watch him read his book.
Yes, I was just going to say when everything shut down, and I wanted to make some sort of contribution because we were so depressed and so freaked out. You know, we were all hiding in our apartments in New York, and I read through my book, Letters from Backstage, especially because it mentally took us out into the traveling the country. And it made me happy and made a lot of people happy to just get to tune into these adventures. So yes, it is on YouTube.
The whole book.
Letters from Backstage.
Oh, yeah. And so if it's already done, can you not just publish it as an audiobook?
I don't think the quality of the YouTube recording is up to that.
Oh yeah. See, I didn't realize. So Mad says that literally saved her life when the apocalypse hit. So grateful.
Man, thank you. I'm so glad to know that because it kind of saved mine too. That was
I'm gonna go check it out. I'm gonna go check it out.
I love taking people along on that. My favorite thing about that is that people read that book and they're like, I feel like I'm there with you. I'm backstage. I can see the hotel. And that's what I love about writing, is that I actually could sort of mentally take them there. We were on 5 or 6 or 12 tangents, but that's talking to me in a nutshell. It's always. But
I love that, because that right there, you're talking our love language. That is what a narrator, that's what we do. That's like, and we're like obsessively, weirdly obsessed about it, telling people stories and having that conversation, and people reading just the right, listening to just the right thing at just the right time, and you're the person that was there telling them, or telling a writer's story that it took their whole life to get the nerve to write, and they get to hear it for the first time, and they call you up in tears. Or, that is the part about this job that gets us hooked. The first time that happens, I don't read my reviews. I have somebody check my reviews in case there's a theme I need to know about, and I check theirs, but I don't read my reviews because it's meaningless to me. But the times when a writer says, oh my God, I cried at my own stuff. The first time that happens, you're like, amazing. I have to do more. I have to, and that's why you start chasing. I have to do this book. I want more. I want a book like this one. It made me feel this way. I want to do that. That connection, you get it in theater. 100%. You get it at those special times in theater when that. Well,
I mean, I get that in teaching, and honestly, again, it was never a plan to be a teacher, but this Audition Psych 101, like, it's so humbling. I get this volume of emails from people saying, I had a good time at an audition. You changed my, I'm like, this is, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me to be the source of that, when I feel like, again, I always could just like say inside, I feel like a boring little potato. And it's like, that's such an amazing thing
But
to
you've
have.
brought us right back to the beginning of the phone call, because what we were saying about actors, my theory about the not having that border in their soul, not having that protection, that boundary, and people being drawn to it, showing up, our job, I feel that our job, narrators and actors, is to go raw into all the emotions, the vulnerability, the strength, the happiness, the ups and the downs for other people, because most people can't face it. And it's our job to face it for them.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Because we're doing that, you're speaking directly to actors who are living their life with no protection. They're for a living putting themselves on that live wire, and you are going, here's my hand.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And the amount of people you reach out a hand to, that gives them strength. They reach out a hand to someone else, and that grows.
I think it's an important part of the tribe. I love calling us a tribe as artists, and that's important tribal practice of going, okay, I figured this thing out. Here's what I figured out. Let me help you with that. And that's, I just think that's, it's really important, and it's
everything. It's the braveness of humanity. I mean, I'm not understating it. It's the people in this world. Who did we all turn to during COVID?
Artists.
The artists, the actors, the writers. They saved our lives during the worst part of, and as Mads just said there, you saved her. We all found ways to express ourselves and reach out to other people. Who else did that? Everyone else buried in little like hovels and like tried to protect themselves. They retreated. But every actor, every narrator I know created and went out on Zoom and pushed things out, because that's what we do. We're brave when other people can't be. And I love that.
Two friends of mine, the three of us are all singers, and we started sending each other videos. We would sing for each other, and it was like, that was medicine.
Right.
I mean, and again, I didn't know what the value would be of putting out my book, and it's so amazing to hear the impact and the value that it had for people, and they were so grateful for it. And it was a really weird, sad time, and I'm so glad I did that. So glad I did that. It was like, here's my little gift that I have to offer. I can take you on a journey around the country.
But each gift grows. You had one talk with somebody on a podcast, and I was so touched and so helped by that one interview that I shared it with the people in my group, 600 something people. You don't know if any of those others, somebody just said that if you haven't, Kim just said, if you haven't watched the videos that I linked that night, they should definitely check it out. I'll relink it. Are you on Facebook? You're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook.
I'll add you to the group so you can see the chat afterwards,
nice.
if you'd like. And so okay, but you're not gonna get off that easily. I have a question I ask everyone at the end of the call. Okay. And oh my God, I forgot the word. Kat, thank you. Okay. And I forget what it is every single time. Okay, so I never got to do this, so I make all the guests do it. In school, I've heard of sometimes they'll bury a time capsule. So like in 20, 30, 40 years, someone will dig it up and everyone gets to put something in the capsule, like meaningful from that era, or famous last words, or a funny joke, or what you'd like to leave people with. For the studio audience or the YouTube audience that might see this in 60 years, what would you like them to take away from this call? What would you like to put in the capsule? It can be anything. It can be wise words. It can be a joke. It can be something that remind you of something?
Well, I think I want to restate what we said, the crux of what we said. Enjoy what you have instead of obsessing about what you don't. I think that's kind of my little time capsule contribution. And everyone should listen to Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner do The 2,000-Year-Old Man. That's my
Wait, what?
thing. Everybody should listen to the recordings of Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner doing The 2,000-Year-Old Man, because that's funny. So that's important too.
I've never heard that. I'm going to check that.
Wait a minute. Stop everything. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, when they were young, they used to do this bit at parties where Mel Brooks would be a 2,000-year-old man and Carl Reiner would interview him. And they were so funny that they recorded the 2,000-year-old man and then the 2,000-year-old, 13-year-old man. They have these recordings where he interviews Mel Brooks as a 2,000-year-old man.
Oh, I'm so going to check that out.
I'm glad I put that in the time capsule. That's important.
Yeah, that is important. I hate if I miss generational moments. I'm so going to check that out. Yeah, it's like when the Carol Burnett, and at the end of the show, I'm so glad we had this time together, right? I'm not a singer, so I won't even attempt it. But I sometimes that'll strike me because I grew up, Carol Burnett. I mean, you're gonna laugh so hard you're gonna wet your pants, just a given. And I'll like sing that song, and somebody will look at me, maybe they're too young or they've had no life, and they'll look at me with this like blank look on their face. And all I'm thinking is, oh my God, you've got nothing, do you? There's no point in your existence, really.
I'm so happy that my stepdaughters have discovered the Dick Van Dyke Show and Mary Tyler Moore and that girl. They're watching all the old sitcoms. I'm like so happy that they are, because I mean, I got to say this. I do a lot of comedic acting, which I used to think, oh, that's frivolous. Now it feels like ministry. Yeah. This play that I'm doing now, which is completely fluffy and frivolous and silly, is like ministry, because people are laughing at a time that we really need to laugh.
Sometimes you need to, not my kind of sitcom, never watched it at the time, but I happened across Betty White, Hot in Cleveland, right?
Saw it, yeah.
I never ever even gave time to it, but I was like having a really stressful time, really freaked out. I could not pay attention to anything. I normally watch thrillers or this. I couldn't get through 5 minutes of anything. And I put this Hot in Cleveland on. I think she was like 95 in it. And every single show, she would come up with this one-liner, and I would be like, burst out laughing. And you forget that you haven't laughed in a long time. Like, the woman was amazing. It's like just a random little sitcom, you wouldn't think much of it. Betty White, 95 years old. And she just ruled it.
I know, I want everybody to watch Carol Burnett, all that stuff. Yeah. It's important, especially for those of us who have darkness and things like that. Like, silliness and laughter is really, really important.
Yeah. I think it's who was that comedian? I don't know who it was, famous person in the hospital dying of like cancer or something, and he cured himself of whatever it was he was dying from by watching comedy. He was laughing the whole time, and he cured himself. It is. Michael, I am honored. Thank you so much for taking the time.
And the amaretto was great. So thank you.
Fabulous. I feel like I've had a couple. So, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mads, for giving us Michael. It was wonderful. It pays to have friends in high places. And the video will be out in 2 weeks. And you've got 600 narrators saying thank you, Michael.
100% my pleasure. This has been so much fun. Thank you.
Guys, go out and audition. Even if you think you won't make it, just audition, audition, audition.
The fun of it.
Yes. Enjoy. We get to act. Bye, Michael. Bye, everyone. Take care. I'm going to add you to the group on Facebook right now.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye.